Hello, everyone. I'm Steven. I'm here with Garvey from Twitch and Christie from Gamers.Vote to talk about getting registered to vote. Garvey and Christie both have a big passion for seeing people engage in voting, and Christie especially. Christie, can you tell us a little bit about Gamers.Vote to start the conversation today?
Sure. So we're a broad coalition of like the best gamers, game companies, platforms, and streamers in the world. We're really just hoping that gamers are going to register to vote so their voices can be heard. What I like about us is we're no issues, no party affiliations, no political agendas. Any company, streamer, celebrity, organization can kind of decide what promotions fit them best and their audience best.
Thanks so much. And Garvey, can you tell us a little bit about what got you passionate about engaging to vote?
Um, Back in the day, I was involved in local politics back in New York City. And I always thought that we had a power within us that we just forgot that we had. We weren't exercising our civic duty. So I slowly but surely, I started to think if we did exercise that civic duty, that we might get some people that's more representative of the hopes and dreams that we have for a better future.
Absolutely. That's fantastic. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions to start things off. Anyone who wants to hop into our Discord, there's a link on the Twitch stream right there below the panel. And there's also a button you can click on if you want to show that you've registered to vote. That was provided to us by Gamers.Vote. And you can go ahead and put questions in that we'll put to the panelists. First off, what are some of the issues that you've been passionate about that you believe impact gamers? Could you speak to that, Christy?
Oh, I just think that, like, in general, we have been conditioned to believe that our vote doesn't matter at all, that, it's a choice between two lesser evils. And I don't think that's the case. I think this is an opportunity where gamers who can change anything when they want to. If you were to take like EA, for example, in microtransactions, when we don't like something, we get it done and we throw it out and we force change through. So I think about it from that perspective, right? I think if we start to care about every level of how we can start to actually have the government work for us and how we can change what's so broken across the board, that's really exciting to me.
That's fantastic. And Garvey, can you talk a little bit about some of your experiences with getting gamers engaged?
Well, I'll tell you, this is the first year that we've really had the opportunity to really have a solid network in the student space. So just a little background, I run student education programs to Twitch, and we're really interested in seeing the trend with students really contributing to their universities now, the programs, the creation of programs. And we put our heads together and we thought it's a perfect time to start getting a little bit more information on the importance of not only federal elections and state elections, but local elections. Um, and really, my student programs are meant to empower and enfranchise students. So this is why I'm just so excited to be a part of this and contribute in any way I can. And hopefully students will realize the power that they have inside themselves, that we've been trained to forget our individual voice doesn't matter, things like this. So I'm really looking forward to seeing students really lead the charge, getting the vote out in local, state, and federal. And I'm hoping one day that with the education that Gamers.Vote provides, that some young people might actually look to being in the service of their communities, being in the service of their state, being in the service of the country. And I think that's really what's been forgotten, maybe. But students really realize that, and they love it. They love being in the service of their university. They love being in the service of each other. And it creates this really good positive reinforcement. So we're just hoping that trend will extend into the political arena. And I'm hoping, I got my fingers crossed that, you know, once the education is out and the process is understood and we participate, hoping we might be able to get one of us, maybe even in a local office, and with that understanding of being in the service of.
I think that's really beautiful. That's fantastic. I know that for a lot of the people who are going to be watching us today, they're in the college space. So they're currently students or they've been working at, trying to enter into a college or getting ready to take that leap. One of the things I've been, oh, what you got there? Showing off,
UCI, baby.
showing off. One of the things that I've always encouraged students in my own experience to do is engage with student government because it's a good step to seeing the voice that you can have, the difference it can make. A lot of institutions around the country now have scholarships and have programs for esports, and many of those started through action in student government. We can take that a step further, and I can talk about companies that are going out there and getting a sanctioned involvement at the high school level that didn't exist 3 years ago. It's now out there, and that's something that government agencies have been approving because of a voice being left from our community. So there's lots of examples of how our voice can make a big difference. So I gave a few there. I know UCI has this really amazing program, but maybe you can talk about it better than I can and how the student engagement there has mattered.
I won't talk about any one particular university, but I think what's happening now is that universities are seeing the power that students have, and they're allowing them to contribute and exercise that power. So these university programs are really, really amazing because, again, it's about empowerment. It's about enfranchising, right? It's about how you feel about yourself, influencing those around you, as opposed to what's around you influencing how you feel about yourself. So these students are really feeling good in these programs. Universities are taking a step back, and they understand now that universities are in the service of students. And this is where students want to be. It's not about video games. We talk about this a lot. It's about the skills, the transferable and valuable skills that you learn in emerging new and digital media. It's about that feeling of empowerment, being seen as equals by administrators, provosts, deans, even college presidents. They sit and they're in the trenches with the students and they're supporting them. And this kind of empowerment through whatever medium it might be, with Gamers.Vote now, we could extend that from not only being empowered, confident, and educated, but you can also be enfranchised. You could understand the latent power that you have inside yourself that we might have forgotten about, maybe our opinion of ourselves and the power of our individual voices wasn't known to us, but it's starting to come out now. And the beautiful work that Gamers.Vote is doing now, letting gamers know, let young people know, let students know, as Christie said, that it doesn't have any kind of boundaries on who we want to work with, what we want to talk about. No question is silly. The only silly question is the unasked one. So I think this all works part and parcel together, right? Every little piece joins together to create a greater whole. And that's what students, I feel, are doing now. And an individual student's voice is important. But once they start empowering each other and they start working with each other and they start talking to each other as equals, that want to use gaming for good, that want to use the life experiences to try and contribute, this is the direction we're going in. This is the first venture into this. And, we're looking to do a sustained campaign of education. And what's that education on? It's education on the power that you have within yourself.
Fantastic. I really want to pick up on something you said and pass it to Christie. Enfranchising gamers to be participants, to really engage in politics.
Yeah, so something he touched on is a really important part of what I want Gamers.Vote to be, as early as next month, but really just the long future of this. We want ambassadors that exist at the school that are able to activate their community, outside of their community, bring them into gaming, find cool ways to have conversations about stuff that doesn't have to get into the nitty-gritty political side, but just like imagining that change is possible. And so when I think about it, it's like the thought of even just calling it Gamers.Vote is to say like, hey, from this perspective, we all love games, but we don't agree why games are important. Or I was going to be like, we like the same game, but we disagree on why we like that game. That's okay, right? We're allowed to do that. And so from this, we can all have difference of opinions or how we see change coming about, but we know that change needs to happen.
For sure. Absolutely. One thing that I think is incredible that you're both bringing forward right now is that gaming has become part of the identity for so many people in our country. This is something that's really a part of our passion. And because it's something that we see as a part of ourselves, we can use it as a reason to collaborate. It can open that door to bringing very different people from different walks of life together as a shared interest. And then it can grow into so many new, fantastic directions.
You know, that's one of the things that I love about this industry, esports, gaming. Really, when you think about it, the main part of the business is to create content that generates data to sell against. Long and short, TLDR, right? But if you think about that process, especially in high schools and universities now, where we're teaching the power of inputs and outputs, contributions and results, these are really powerful. Once you really understand contributions, results, inputs and outputs, it starts removing this kind of societal constructs that are inherent, all over the world. So once we start removing some of those societal constructs and people work with each other, and first steps, right? Work together without regard for gender, color. If you say God, Yahweh, or Allah, it really shouldn't, at least for business to start, work together, work with the very best people, work with people you can trust that say what they mean and mean what they say. That's much more important than being put into a little corner and limiting yourself and limiting those around you by sticking to these societal constructs. In university esports program, it's really interesting the way things are panning out now. Most universities, it might seem like it's young male driven, but that's just the majority of the players. If you take a step back, universities like UCI have like a 53-47% split. The young ladies are in charge of management and running things and making sure everything's super clean, moving forward. All the business, all the I's are dotted, the T's are crossed. The young men that come in and play, they don't see young ladies organizing, right? They see contributors that are actually pushing the path forward, pushing the program to new heights, because we're all thinking, pay it forward. What can
Garvey,
we
so much has
do?
changed, right? Like I lived in the campus cove in a LAN cafe. When I was in class, I was in a LAN cafe. I was one of the only, if not the only girl during my university days. And that is not the case anymore. And sometimes
No.
progress takes a really long time. And right now it's really lovely to see these esports and gaming programs. It's partially catering to the fact that we need a lot of male participants to have extracurricular activities in that space, whereas females typically do already have a lot of extracurricular involvement, some in university and college experience. But I do think we're getting to that point where it will extend past management. It will be for passion and play.
Absolutely.
I know certain organizations on a professional level are taking a more engaged, deep look at how they're searching for talent. Were they looking hard enough for female players? What is that new next step? So that's really exciting for me. So I never look at it as like a negative. I think it's another step.
Right. It has to start somewhere, right? Even just the discussion, which we started back in when I was thinking about starting the Twitch student program in 2014. This is what I was trying to think of. How can we use the program, gaming, to really affect change in a positive way?
No, that's fantastic. I've been in this space a minute as well. And I can say that some of the most powerful people that we've had step up to lead have been some of the women in gaming. They've been some of the most amazing people I've worked with. I remember the first org I was in, I had the opportunity to help found it. But when I turned it over to the first female president for a gaming org on that campus that they'd ever had. And she did amazing things I never could have done after I was.
I'll give a shout out to Kathy.
Jealous. I wasn't there to enjoy the things she was achieving. So it's been fantastic to see. And I think the number is that 40 something, close to 50% of all people who identify as playing games as part of their culture and who they are females. But it's not like it's a male dominated space. It's something where we really have to break some of the stigma that's still there, implying it is, because that's just not the case. So, Christie, let me ask you, when we come and talk about trying to get people to be more inclusive in gaming, we talked about more involvement in gaming, more diversification. Doesn't that tie also into the idea of being participants in the political discourse?
Of course. So, I mean, that is the kind of Me Too movement that's recently happened again in our gaming community. That's not just to us, that's a worldwide experience of how do we fix that? Having a voice, putting that voice to where it matters, paying attention on all levels, what's happening and where change can kind of happen, right? And that's again one of our future hopes, is that this is beyond November 6th, right? Where do we go? How do we get gamers in all communities and all their different aspects, from mobile game Candy Crush stuff to Counter-Strike to, I don't know, once played MUDs, like whatever that is. I want, or tabletop games, whatever it is, getting those communities, pulling them together where it matters on a local, congressional, state level, that really excites me.
I think that's
the
fantastic.
the education needs to come first, though. So a lot of people are very confused about the political processes, what can be voted on, how does voting local affect state, how does state affect federal. A lot of people think federal elections, that they'll go and vote once every 4 years for the president. But we're not. If you can look at some of the candidates that's been coming down the pipeline, I don't know if there is appropriate a representation of the hopes and dreams of young people going forward. I don't know if it has this long runway that's trying to think about the movement with Generation Z into Generation Alpha, which is hitting high school next year. How can we be in their service? So obviously,
Garvey and I talked a lot about this. He knows kind of our plans, whether it's through Twitch, how our content, once we're in a world where I can have more time to build that fun side. Imagine, if you will, the way that we all know our favorite characters, their abilities, their skill set, the way the meta works. I want people to understand this political system at large. Like, are you elected or appointed? How many years are you there? What do you actually control? What is out of your range? And I think that's part of how we'll make it fun for this community, whether it's magic cards for the Supreme Court justice or whatever that is, finding out how we
Smash
partners.
Smash characters.
Love it.
Smash, absolutely.
I would like, I'm really deep into Disney Sorcerer's Arena, so I would really like some characters from that.
I think Ruth Bader would break the meta in Smash, so let's not ruin it by giving her that platform. She already dominates everything else. She's so amazing. I want to say that one of the things that seems least understood when I talk to young voters where I am, and this is something that I've had lots of talks about because I've previously run in politics, part of the reason I'm moderating here today, is they don't understand just how much the local elected officials influence the state elected officials who influence the national conversation. Every single person you vote for is going to either be on a panel or in a group that is going to then influence other people getting elected and what they have to do and what the expectations are, all the way up to the national convention. And if voters only look at the national convention, they're only seeing the final result. They're not necessarily seeing what led into that. So how can we help voters who are gamers perhaps really see that whole picture?
So I can answer it from my perspective, like right now, and then obviously there's a future conversations to have when I have more time to build the content side of what I hope we are as a portal of information people come to regardless of bias. But right now, that's my opportunity to pull in some of our amazing nonprofit partners who are doing incredible work in the pro-democracy, nonpartisan space that can offer up specific details on a local level to however people might, need that information and push. That's what I hope I can provide. And we've been really great at figuring out how to pair those nonprofits, those incredible organizations, fixing gerrymandering, et cetera, with our gaming side partners, whether it's a celebrity streamer, an organization, a publisher. And we have so many exciting announcements that I can't get into it, but please understand that that's one of my love to figure out how we solve it better and faster. We are working on that.
I think that's powerful. I do like the idea of more streamers being out there who are engaging on these topics. I know that there's a lot of emphasis for some streamers to try to keep politics away from the gaming space. But maybe that's not the right way to approach this. I know people are worried about being divisive on issues, but engaging in politics itself shouldn't feel divisive. So Garvey, what would you say to that?
I would say there's a time and a place for everything, right? So I really like the idea of broadcasters exercising their civic duty and enlightening their communities. So it would be a dream for maybe, when there's an important local election coming up, that somebody that lives in that district, somebody that lives in that city will do a broadcast and be like, okay, next Tuesday is primaries or whatever the case may be. Monday night, I'm not going to game. I'm going to take 3 hours. I'm going to let you know who's running. I'm not going to say Republican or Democrat or independent. I'm just going to tell you what they stand for and what they stand against. More importantly, what are they not talking about? Then, it's only, it's not like they're going to be a political theorist, right? But they can say what's important to them in their local. And then when there's state elections, maybe, several broadcasters in that state can do the same thing, coordinate and say, look, we're all going to be discussing what's going on with state elections. We have a state senator coming up that runs this district. This who's running against. We have a judge that's coming up. We have this, we have that, we have a referendum. So it doesn't have to be this extended thing. We have to start somewhere, right? Baby steps. So I'm all for broadcasters taking a little time out, just schedule it, right? Every good broadcaster should have a schedule, and on that schedule should have like some kind of TLDR if you're a variety streamer. Obviously, if you're just playing one title, then you don't really have to put a TLDR for the schedule. But it'd be nice to have a little thing on the calendar that says, okay, for these 3 hours this night, we're going to have a political discussion. We're going to sit down and we're going to talk about things that are important to me where I live. I would love to hear your opinion. This is how I feel about this. This is how I feel about this. This is how I feel about this. Please, if I'm missing something, let me know.
This is an unpopular opinion, but I think we've also been told that we have not enough in common, and I disagree completely. I think most Americans agree on a lot of the same topics. We just see change happening in slightly different ways. But it's been very advantageous for a two-party system to make it seem like we have nothing in common too, right? So like part of just creating less of a disinformation source and getting people the information they need that's very factual, related to issues, and having the streamers be able to thoughtfully and carefully have those kind of discussions. I think that's part of one of my missions for some of the top streamers, is being able to pair them with those pro-democracy, nonpartisan groups that they know exactly what Americans agree upon. I always throw this example out because it's not as political, is the idea of taxes. I think most people don't understand why it's such a ridiculous process. Guess which number I have? I think, like why isn't the government relationship maybe like a TurboTax relationship? And it's not. And we all know why. We don't have to get into it, but that's actually like over 80% of us agree that that is a system that needs to be adjusted. And so I think sometimes sticking to those particular topics that we actually can agree upon is a great place to start. And then as I was gonna say, like, civil rights to me is not something that is a partisan issue, right?
No.
And there's definitely something where that gets misconstrued in the messaging, but getting back to what that actually means and dissecting it would be a great place to start.
I'm very interested in having discussions on what's not being talked about by a lot of politicians. So that's where I'd love to have discourse on.
I'll be tuning in, Garvey. I'll be tuning in. So for those who are just joining us, if you want to ask questions of our panelists, there's a link beneath the stream for Discord. There is a place there you can ask questions. If you are here and you'd like to register to vote, there's also a button provided to us by Gamers.Vote that you can click on. They'll give you instructions. There's also information for if you happen to be someone who wants to absentee vote. Very easy to go through. That can get you all the information to do so.
No questions about quarantine hair, please.
There's a reason I got a hat on today.
I had my first salon appointment, and it was like post-apocalyptic scenario where I wasn't even allowed to have my hair blown dry. Like I had to leave, go blow dry my own hair, come back. everything's like masked off. It was great. At least got my hair fixed. It was rough for a really long time, but you know what? If that's what it takes to get my hair colored, I'm for it. Let's do that as long as.
I'm just gonna try growing it like you're like a Witcher cosplay or something.
There we go. Let's
All
go.
right. So one thing that I hear from college voters a lot is they don't entirely understand where they should vote. Do they vote in their home state? Do they vote where they're going to school? Christy, can you give some guidance to those questions?
Well, one day I hope it's less complicated, but right now, I mean, we have 40 states that are available for online registering, and then you have like I think also in the District of Columbia. The problem is that's where I definitely want to tap our partners because they have done way more amazing work in being able to inform people based on where they live, deadlines, all the cutoffs, what you have to do there. But that is a broken system, right? Like that's something I hope that by the next major, 4 years from now, we're way ahead on being able to get the right information out there and hopefully everybody could be registered online. And then more importantly, how do we fix even just how we vote? Whole other conversation for me.
Yes, I think you're stressing again the importance of really exercising our civic duty. If you look what happened in Kentucky, there was supposed to be 5,200 polling stations and they closed it down to 200 polling stations. And then against the rules, they try to block people that were already online from voting when the doors closed at 6 o'clock. You have to hold people accountable, and the only way to hold people accountable is to go out and vote.
Keep in mind, if you're tuning into this and you're just catching this, a lot of those people who make those decisions and control those things are your local elected officials. If you just watch the presidential, you're going to miss a lot of conversations. And if you only vote in presidential years, you're going to miss a lot of the opportunities to have a voice that makes a big difference because some of those positions don't even get put on the ballot in presidential cycles. There's a reason for that.
Like,
go vote.
It literally affects you as well. Local politics is the closest to home you could think. This is your streets. This is how your garbage gets picked up. This is how your judges are elected and your district attorneys and stuff like that. You got to really, you got to start close to home and then expand based upon your comfort zone.
That's right.
More as you get older, you get kids, you have to worry about all the other things that gets added to it. So starting to care now and fixing these things now that matter to you are going to make a really big difference by the time you make those decisions.
Absolutely. And if you happen to be a streamer watching this, it's great to tell people about what they can know on the candidates, but you can go a step further than that. You can reach out to the candidates and say, hey, come over here and talk about your positions. They will usually say yes, particularly if they're local.
We're going to steer away from political broadcasters and our platform because we might have stuck our nose in the hornet's nest last week.
Moving on. I want to once again remind people, if you're tuned into this, you can come ask your questions as well. There's a place for you to put in panel questions. It can't just be me asking them this. These two are amazing people that have been in this space doing amazing things. You have to think of something that I'm not thought of so far, so please come join in. So with that in mind, Garvey, do you have any questions that you think should be asked of Christie while we've got her here about the voting experience and getting people registered?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think, how can we get the word out even more? We're all trying. Is there any other alliances that we can think of with Gamer.Vote, with other people that are trying to reach different segments of communities and our population and try to put this coordinated, sustained effort? I know, Christie, we've talked a lot about this is just the start, right? We're just starting to get the tooling. We're just starting to understand. We're just starting to understand who we can work with and why it's important to them. Who else do you think would be interested in that, would complement all the great work that you're doing?
So funny enough, that kind of happened yesterday. I mean, I've definitely been trying to make newer relationships on the side where we can lean into support so we can't be all the things, because right now, obviously, we're trying to build up what Gamers.Vote could be. And then the next stage of that is what it will be. And the other day I was connected to what is called the Impact Guild. And it was this incredible experience of meeting people that have been in this space for a while. One of them is the Civic Alliance. They basically any company that joins them, it doesn't cost anything, and they hold them accountable for social and civic related activities, and they provide information and messaging and wording, so they get involved. So it was really crazy to me, because don't think that's not going to be something that lands into partnerships for Gamers.Vote and allows me to have different opportunities, whether it's surprise and delighting people, incentivizing them to vote from our community. Maybe they're the next person that's going to host the Women in Gaming event as a partner. Like the long-term hope here, and it's already in conversation as we spoke about, is we hope that we get to continue to activate all of our partners, whether it's here's a Fortnite tournament, or Ubisoft is holding an event, or we're having block parties, as it relates to anything locally, state level. And it's a really cool space to live in. But obviously right now we're doing everything we can to raise awareness about this, get the right people involved. And I'm more of the connector as much. You know how I love my 56-page decks of information and getting people excited on ways to get incentivized and get on board. But I do hope that beyond what I'm currently, which is just the connector of people and the things, we get into more of like how we actually implement that part of the change. But yeah, meeting amazing groups like Civic Alliance. There was, the participant was really cool. They had a lot of different information. There was like a bunch of different organizations that I can see how I could pair them directly with certain organizations for more impactful moments. But that's been the beauty of this, right? There's no like necessary messaging. It's just doing my best right now to make people more aware and connect the dots. But after then, people are going to find their own way to find their group on their own, or these will be long-standing relationships that grow into something more.
Well, I can promise you it'll be a core component of the Twitch student program moving forward.
Awesome.
I think that's fantastic. One thing that's come up is that when we talk about gaming from the perspective of where we're at, particularly on Twitch, many people think video gaming is where that stops. But we've got massive communities of card gamers and board gamers that are just as passionate, just as engaged, and they overlap a lot with the rest of our community. I don't know how many people here have played Dungeons and Dragons or Pathfinder, but that's where I started personally. That was my gateway into getting involved in the rest of the space. And think about those groups. How would you say that we can possibly reach them better? By the way, Gen Con's going to be happening next week.
So that's already part of my work. Like as I said, I'm reaching out to people beyond the esports and gaming space. I'm also talking to brands that have never entered the space, but they really believe in incentivizing voter registration. So even just that conduit of what I can maybe bring and help push into our wonderful space. But I have a list of some of my favorite streamers that do tabletop gaming, and you probably can guess without me getting into specifics. So having those conversations go into next week, what can they contribute? What are cool things that I can pull from some of our awesome celebrity opportunities with our partners into amazing stream moments there? And that's me being as carefully wording this as I can without giving any spoilers. But that's wonderful. And I would love to have a conversation, for example, like with PAX. And I'm working right now within my own network, Garvey's network, our founders network, but they definitely have a list of, man, wouldn't it be great to have a conversation with this person or this organization, right?
Fantastic. We have a question from Talfrey on the Twitch stream. He asks about how to make sure that your vote matters. He points out how there's been lots of accusations that mail-in voting is high risk of tampering, fraud, and so forth. I think that gets to the topic you were talking about on misinformation.
Well, mail-in voting is absolutely an option. I mean, the President of the United States does mail-in voting. His wife does mail-in voting. Most of his staff does mail-in voting. So they must believe in the system if they're using it. So I would recommend that if it's easier for you and it's safer for you, especially during these trying times, to just check if you could do mail-in voting and participate that way. Yeah, it's absolutely a proven system. Like I said, if the President of the United States believes in it and uses it, I believe we all should.
There's a lot of amazing organizations right now that are working really hard to educate around and also fight the battle of disinformation on mail-in voting. But more importantly, it's fair to assume that younger generations have never even mailed a letter, and now they're expected to do this. Like, and how do we incentivize and force that to happen? And that's a hard part without collecting data, which is something we don't participate in. But I like that idea of, I did the action, and now how can the gaming community do something to say, like, congratulations for doing your civic duty? Like, that's one of those challenges we've been trying to figure out, and we'll hopefully get a little bit closer to that by November. But I would hope that we figure out by 4 years from now.
And that misnomer about your individual voice not mattering, just take a step backwards for a second and think why somebody might say that to you. I always question everything. I might not say it to their face, but I question everything and I do my due diligence. And I know that my voice means something. I believe in myself. You need to believe in yourself. Again, don't let the external influence you. You have to do what you believe. Love yourself, care for yourself, believe in the power that you have in yourself, and others will believe in it too. So never, ever let anybody tell you that you as an individual cannot affect change. You absolutely can. Take that away. It's people that just don't want you to go polling that will reduce the polling centers from 5,200 to 200 and lock the doors at 6 o'clock sharp, no matter how many people are waiting online. You have to believe in yourself. That's where everything starts, with yourself as an individual. All the power in the world, in the universe, resides in yourself. You've just got to have that comfort and confidence in yourself to express it.
One of those clear examples of that whole proving that my vote doesn't matter would be the Virginia state election in 2017, where everything, the entire Virginia state government could have been changed if one more person had actually voted. Garvey, I'm sure you're familiar, so if you want to take it, but I mean, imagine that. We're told that it doesn't matter, but everything could have actually been different if one more person would have actually showed up. I think that's really cool.
To give you guys some numbers here, roughly 1 in 5 people who you consider a boomer are gamers. Roughly almost 50% of people who are considered millennials, who are in their 30s now in many cases, are gamers. If every single gamer in the country decided to start voting, there's more of us than there are in any individual political party in our nation right now. We could be voting via Twitch in 5 years.
We could even take a step further back, right? Every single year, there's 23 million college students coming through universities, 27 million high school students. That's 54 million people that can stand up, and each one of them will have been told that their individual voice and their individual vote does not matter. But imagine 54 million students actually saying, you know what can it hurt? I'm going to go out and vote. 54 million, that's a lot of individual votes.
I just think about how this community can change so much, going back to that whole idea of EA and microtransactions. Any brand entering esports alone knows that they have to be very careful with their entry points. And if you think about that, it's because they know we have a lot of power, right? If we use that kind of power and our voice for things that mattered on all different levels of our life, is pretty interesting to consider. I would love to be kind of see where this goes 4 years from now. Like, where are we if everyone cared as much about the things that change in our gaming environment as we do in our political?
I guarantee you.
I think the winds of change are coming, right? We're moving from a gig economy, which I never agreed with, into a passion economy. And if you haven't heard about the passion economy, I would really recommend that you just do a quick Google search and read a little bit about the passion industry. That's where we are with this industry, right? Individuals doing what they love, working with cool people, doing cool things, right? Each one of these content creators, each one of our community members now are understanding the power they have within themselves to affect change. So, this industry was a great boon, I think, to a lot of people that really didn't understand the power that they had within themselves, but took a chance and created some content, put themselves out there. That's a very, very scary thing. I could not be a broadcaster myself, right? But now more and more people are seeing that this is a viable way to live. We have the passion economy that a lot of research has been done on. I believe in it myself. And it's all about the individual working with others, right? Every part is important, and a lot of parts create something greater than each individual part, right? So this is what we're trying to think of now. Empower an individual, they empower a community, the community empowers a movement.
And
But it starts with you.
Yeah, and a nice part of that is the responsibility factor when you're putting yourself out there. You do have the opportunity to go, I am learning, I'm getting better, and I'm improving, and it's okay. And it's been really interesting to watch that with so many name streamers that we've seen in the past couple months of realizing their past behaviors and being held accountable for it and moving forward. And I mean, there's definitely some negative sides, all the above, but I think that that's the coolest thing that I've seen in the past couple months is just the ownership of, I have this responsibility. I'm going to take a little more seriously going forward. And I am a voice for change on whatever I think that change should be in our community.
That's powerful.
It all starts with an individual.
It does. And that's a point near and dear to my own heart. There's a lot of things coming to light right now that we can turn into change. It's one thing to say people should look at what's going on and people should be held accountable and people should do better. But we can each take a hand in making sure that that change happens, both for ourselves and the people who come behind us, because we want to not just leave a community that's going to be better than it was yesterday. We want to leave a community that is always building itself up to be better than it was the day before.
Mm-hmm. Pay it forward. To plant trees that you'll never feel the shade of.
So I'm going to take a quick look on our Twitch.
Go ahead if you want to ask. I was just going to say one thing regarding being held accountable to things. I think one of the neatest things for me is realizing that in this new world, there's almost sometimes no chance to make a mistake without having to immediately, people are growing up online. When I was on the IRC and I had that whole world, but it was much more private, right? Like Twitter didn't exist, et cetera. So we had mistakes that weren't necessarily immediately recorded. So I'm watching generations grow up with this and the trials and tribulation. I am really impressed that they're holding themselves accountable to it, because I know plenty of people in my age group that would not own up to the idea of their previous mistakes as a 20-year-old and on board, right? Like, and just publicly say those things. So I'm really impressed with the younger generations in our gaming community for even just taking those initial steps.
For sure. Over on Twitch, we have a button that was given to us by given to us by Christie over at Gamer.Vote. And if you click on it, you can actually not only register to vote, but you can confirm that you are already registered if you are already registered. And while it has no impact on us personally, it will make my heart very, very, very warm to see that number tick over the single digits, because there has to be more of you who are voters than 6 people. So please take a moment to check it out, give the button a click, and if you're not registered, please do.
Please do.
So, quick question for you, Garvey. When we talk about people engaging in politics, we've been very much talking about the American experience, but Twitch isn't just part of the American experience. You're all over the world. What does this effort look like for people who are maybe international?
So right now we're in 26 countries. We have to be very, very careful about how things are handled in particular countries. I won't mention any cities or particular countries, but there's a lot of people that's really hurting right now. There's a lot of people with a thumb on the back of their neck because they just don't have in them or the opportunity that we might have here in America. I would love to work with more countries. Right now, I have a very, very good understanding of the American political system. For me to have any confidence in what I say for other countries, I really feel like I need to move there. I need to live there for a couple months. I need to really, really understand the culture, how politics affects the culture, how history affects the culture. It's very, very important to understand the history of a country, to understand the political situations. And once I have a full understanding, I'd have a lot more confidence to speak. But this is universal when I say that you have all the power in the universe inside yourself. Your voice does mean something. What you think about and what you care about means something to a lot of people. We just need to be a bit more vocal about it. We just need to exercise our civic duties as is safe in any particular region in the world. But just educate yourselves. That's the first step with everything in life. Understand the mechanics of what you're getting into, and then work it from the inside.
Works just the same as in a game. If you've got a good knowledge stat, you're going to do a lot more. You're going to get a lot more things done.
Absolutely.
For one, would like to see Garvey do a TED Talk, and I will be there in the front row. Just saying.
Maybe a virtual TED Talk if it happens in the short term. But yeah, 100%.
I'd like to get, as part of the Twitch student program, I would love to do a series, because I have to tell you, I meet some of the most amazing students. If I can hire 50,000 people, I would hire 50,000 students right now. So there's so much passion going into what they're doing. They're educating themselves. They're working together. So this is just, I think, ground zero for me.
It's awesome. All right. So going to step back a second, look at a different topic we touched on briefly, and look at Christie for this one. We talked about trying to get engaged with local politics, but we didn't really give any guidance on how to educate ourselves on that. Maybe you have some guidance or some resources you can point people towards if they want to learn but just don't know how.
So again, there's amazing resources out there. I think you have to look for them. You can start with some really easy ones, like Common Cause is a great group. They've been in this space, I think, since the 70s. Incredible work. They're a trusted resource. They also are the ones who do a lot of volunteer calls for people to make sure they know where to go, what they need, what the timing is. There are organizations like Represent Us. They're doing incredible work too. They're a resource, and fun resource too. They have an incredible YouTube channel with a bunch of funny videos that explain things like what they need to focus on, what's important right now, hot topic issues. And then they have, like, you could just spend hours on their YouTube page alone, enjoying what you're watching and being educated. Instagram for them is one of the best, like, quick facts that I would go to. But again, there's so many groups doing great work. I do hope that the future of Gamers.Vote is we can do a little bit more about funneling that correctly, but we're just in our beginning stages and growing. We're in conversations with Garvey about what our Twitch channel will be, what we'll be able to pull from that. We're definitely hoping for our student ambassadors that we're going to start looking for, how we can activate them on the campus group. Like, that's all Garvey helping us on how we do that through Twitch in a more effective way. So I'm really excited about that next step. But we do hope that we're a resource that people can trust. Won't be fight the disinformation campaigns on all sides.
Yeah, I'd love to say we need to make things a little bit easier for people. The political process is not an easy process to understand, so we need to simplify it, right? So even if it's something as simple as a geographic map where you can click on your state and you can click on your city, and it gives you a rundown of who's running, a TLDR of what they stand for, what's coming down the pipeline, dates and stuff like that. Or maybe even simpler, you something that you could type your zip code in, and it comes out with, all the political process that's going on around you, and you could expand. Take bite-sized chunks. Don't try to go too ham with this. There's a lot to the political system. So take bite-sized chunks, start in your zip code, and just educate yourself a little bit on what's going on immediately affecting you. And then at your own comfort zone, just start expanding that knowledge base, Again, knowledge is power. And, we have a real chance now to affect change. There's a lot of movements going on right now. And I'll tell you, these are the mechanics of having our voice heard, right? Protesting, going out there and exercising our civic duty. But we really need to understand the whole process. We need to work every single angle we can if we want systemic institutional change, if we want the world to be a better place for our children, our families, our grandkids, grandkids, things like that. It needs to start somewhere, and that's educating yourself on what's going on around you and making sure that we understand the system and we're working every angle that we have to have our voice heard.
One of the funny things to me is that, yes, the political system and all its different levels are very complicated, but have you met gamers? Have you met our games, the things that we love, that people memorize, all the different things
Yep.
that we know? Not just about like one game, but like all the ones that we play. We can pretty much, just have TED Talks about that particular topic. It was really exciting. So I don't think that's the problem, that it's complicated. I think that it isn't fun,
Well,
that we don't enjoy, and we don't think it's important to learn yet. And that is definitely something I would love to tackle.
But we're taking a little bit of the instant gratification that comes from playing video games, though. The political process is a long game. So there's none of that instant, okay, I'm going to educate myself, and tomorrow I'm going to go change the world. In video games, you can do that, which is why we escape so often. Yeah.
Part of like where, from the content perspective, or what we're trying to do, incentivizing learning different steps of that. I do think beyond, November 6th, we're going to look at ways that it makes sense to learn in bite-sized content and cool ways where we activate all our partners in meaningful moments to start making it cool and incentivize to learn the different stages. We discussed about the Supreme Court justice system, right? Like, how can we just have that be a topic where we learn the same way and we care, and by proving it,
lifetime appointments. That's a lifetime appointment right there. Woo!
I've got to say that that's a big topic. If there's anyone in here who's a hopeful game developer or indie developer, if you want to go out there and make the next Pokemon Go and make it politics go, I think that getting hit with those factoids on the road, finding out about your local area, could be pretty powerful. We're about to wrap up. What's going to come after this is going to be a Jackbox session. If anyone wants to hang out, there'll be an opportunity to participate, including for our panelists if they want to hang out. And past that, we have just one more closing opportunity. I let Garvey pose a question to Christie earlier. I never gave her the opportunity to do the same. So would you like the closing question?
Oh, I was just going to be like, you're for sure going to be joining us and helping us with Gamers.Vote beyond November 6th. So I'm just more hoping that Garvey will be the kind of person that joins our board and continues to just make sure we focus on the college side specifically, and also the younger generations, making it cool in high school to learn about this process and educating them before it becomes that little moment where you have to make your first decision that matters.
I would be honored.
Hey.
Absolutely.
We're watching history here, people.
Good, anything that's doing good in places like this. There's another really great organization that I do anything for, Rise Above Disorder, which deals with mental health issues for free in our industry. These are the kind of things that I'd work weekends, nights, days, mornings, outside of my working hours, which is usually 12 to 13 hours a day. Yeah, this is something I really believe in. I believe in Gamers.Vote, and I believe in you, each and every one of you. Go out there, understand the power you have within yourself, understand the change that you can affect, and just don't be scared to express yourself. Now's the time.
Use your voice, it matters.
Yes,
all right, thank you, everyone, and thank you both for being here. It's been fantastic talking to you. I really enjoyed it, and I'm hoping that the people who were with us enjoyed it twice as much as I did. So let's go ahead and rock and roll on to the next event for today.